So overall, we've been really pleased with the way that things have started off this first year, but some of the obstacles that we are working and trying to overcome are like RHS technology. We only have limited number of computers, and since everybody is running an advisory, trying to get everybody to watch one of those select YouTube videos or to be able to view some of it has caused us to really get creative, doubling up and tripling up in some cases, in order to see some of these things if we want to take advantage of them. The length of our advisory group, we started off conservative, and so we have to come back and reevaluate if we're doing it frequently enough or if we have enough time. Sometimes we were thinking, everybody's a little bit nervous at first, is 30 minutes too long, and we're finding that that goes by in the snap. And so people sometimes have said, hey, can we have an extra 10 minutes or so? So we would really want to go back to the staff and see what their thoughts are, and we haven't done quite as much pre and post as the high school does. But we do have plans to survey everybody and see what their input would be as we go through the second year so that we can improve on what we already have. Professional development sort of goes along the same lines as what's going on at Rockville, and just giving time to be able to speak with the teachers and make them feel comfortable with it. The binders that we put out, which was similar to what RHS's goal was, is to try and make it the least amount of work for the teachers, but also make something that was valuable since they already are teaching their classes. And so we have to come back in and look at how we're going to do year 2 for our group, and then of course year 3 since we cycle at VCMS on 3 years. So just making the teachers feel more comfortable and getting their input on that. And then supplies was also something that we've sort of worked around. Part of the grant money, Mr. Griffin was able to give us some startups things, but as years come, we want to make sure that we have enough things so that we can run the advisories. One of the things that we're running out of already is something as simple as a folder for each student. So we'll look at how we might be able to work on that for following years. And then the last one at VCMS is just rooms. Right now there are more advisories than there are places to meet. So myself and another counselor meet in the auditorium, and we share the stage and the auditorium floor. We have several people that are in the cafeteria. So looking at creative ways to make sure that we can have meaningful group time with students without having everybody else interfering by causing distractions if they're having a discussion or things like that.
And the last is, before year 2, what we need to do, we definitely, as an advisory group, need to meet and discuss our plans and our topics that we want to do for next school year. Create a schedule or look at the schedule with the feedback that we're going to obtain from our fellow colleagues. Again, is 30 minutes too short of a period of time, or can we go longer with that? Do we really have to do every other day one, where sometimes we're taking 2 times during a month, or can we just do once a month? So that's something that we need to look at. We would like to be able to collect all the binders back from our faculty and go through and make revisions to this year, and possibly even add in new ones for next year, unless we decide to just work with what we have and just put a different take on it. Research and develop activities for year 2, and add year 2 lessons to the notebook. So that's what we have, and we thank you.
We could get the lights. Questions of the panel? Yes, sir.
I'm curious about, I don't understand how you have the time and the students have the time. Can you explain that to me again?
In time regards to
for your 30-minute meetings, how you...
we do have a special schedule of kids that we have created in which we have shortened all of our blocks for the day, and each team, because we have 9 different teams, runs on a different schedule. So 6th grade will do, there are 3 classes. They'll do flex, which is study hall, they'll do their unified arts, and they'll do health or PE in the morning, and then we go right into the advisory schedule, which is 30 minutes, and then we'll go right out of that and they'll start with their core classes, and it's vice versa for the other groups. With this schedule, it's a little confusing once you first look at it, and it does take some time for us to figure it out ourselves, but it does work where we have 30 minutes allotted during that day, because we are taking just a little bit of time from each class, which adds up to the 30 minutes.
That's what I want. So it is instruction time, but it's spread out.
It's spread out. It's what, about 5 minutes?
It's about 5 minutes from each class. And we, at VCMS anyway, we went and changed the periods, so we went from 8 to 7, so we have extended periods from what we're used to anyway. So it actually still works out to be more time than what we had been accustomed to in years past. So instead of having about 55 4 minutes, we have about 50 that day.
And you're looking to grow that, you're thinking about growing it to an hour?
We're hoping to, so that way instead of meeting twice a month and taking up 2 separate 30 minutes, we might just be able to get by with just one day and doing an hour long or 45 minutes long. I know that right now our lunch time is at 27 minutes, so maybe we could just take 5 minutes from there, which is an increase in our lunch time from what we had last year. So we just have to look at the schedule and see what we can do.
And you're convinced that the trade-off on instruction time is worth the activities that you're doing?
Yes.
How about the same thing from the high school? Where
Yeah,
you
we
have
have
the
an
time?
advisory schedule. It's about 10 minutes off of 3 of the blocks of the day. This was the, I apologize. We take about 10 minutes off of each block to make up the 30 minutes. We have an advisory schedule all set and handled.
I'd like to say also that some of the data coming out of NEASC that they were sharing at some seminars that we've gone to is the suggestion actually is effective programs in advisory have been meeting twice a month for 30 minutes per. It's kind of the objective that we'd like to be able to get to if we could. And I think the other thing that we should make sure that you're aware is that a lot of schools are struggling to find time to get these programs into our educational programs without impacting instruction, is that it's something that we're going to be required to have. So if schools did not have these programs in place, it's kind of what's called a sink or swim standard in the NEASC process, and you would have some fairly serious consequences in the report for failing to not have that program in place, in addition to the benefits that we've all seen in our practice for the students.
And I think it goes along with the student success plans. When we met and went to a lot of trainings that the state had been putting on, advisory was one of those components. So this meets that need at both levels. The 6 through 12 component of it is important to consider as well. And I guess with the instruction part of it, I think that it really does meet a developmental need that our kids have. We've come to the point where we weren't really sure how it would go off, and we have students come up now and say, is it an advisory day? Or they're really looking forward to it because the things that we do are developmentally appropriate and they learn something, but they also get to have an informal discussion. So in some ways that's just as important sometimes, I think, as the curriculum that's going on. I mean, it's its own curriculum, and it's valuable to make sure that the kids get what they need as far as their developmental needs from each of the grades as they move up.
I thought it was curious, unless I interpreted the information incorrectly, that as the kids in the high school, as they progressed through the grades, they found the activity or the advisory group less impacted. The seniors were less impressed than the freshmen. And so I'm hoping that what you say is true, that when you resurvey, that the results are different from this survey information.
I think there's a certain degree of cynicism on part of some of the kids, because there is, when we first get these groups together, I found with my group anyway, there was kind of a phoniness to it, that the kids are like, oh, why are we here? And we talk about why we're doing this. And over time, that the cynicism and the kind of forced nature of those conversations starts to change, and you do start to see real relationships develop. I think just because of their age, the seniors are going to be a little tougher to get. And I think as we learn how to do this more, I think it's a very important part of what we do. I miss my advisory group now that my role in the building has changed. They were just starting to kind of make a little bit of a transition into really kind of taking ownership of the conversation. And I think a lot of us have that similar experience. It's evolving as the kids in both of us learn how to do it effectively.
I think our implementation has been a little inconsistent, and so I think that's what's built a little bit of that for the seniors in particular.
And I understand that at the middle school you're developing a way to find out what kind of impact it's having on the students.
Yes.
We'll be getting that when you figure it out.
Yes, we are, especially since this is our first year implementing this into our school.
Thank you.
Ms. Bush?
Yes, I see in the middle school that you have the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in mixed. In years to come, how do you make it new and different for the kids that will be in the same, maybe the same topics and things like that throughout the years?
Well, that was sort of where the themes come in, and so our idea would be is we have our year one, activities, and then we would come back. I mean, do a second year, maybe centering around some of those global themes, but having different activities that would relate to them so it isn't the same. Some of the ones that we might continue would be the going over a midterm or a progress report and setting goals, but the other ones we would try to change up so it wasn't the same thing from year to year. And if that's the case, that's where the 3-year cycle would sort of come in, where we could possibly pull from these after this year's group moves out, so that every 3 years we can come back. The only thing with that is we have to keep in mind that in 3 years the needs or the interest might change, so we want to update them or revise them as the times change. So that is definitely something that we're considering as well.
Thank you.
How bad student choice would also be important to the decision. Student choice would be important to consider in the future as well. I mean, the students have contributions for what the topic should be. That can vary, every year.
Thank you.
Other questions, board members? Seeing none, thank you very much for this presentation. I think you did a great performance.
Do you want us to leave these books so we can flip it, or? Those are the middle schools. These are extra. We need one extra copy.
So we can review them when we have time. So if you want to leave them with the superintendent, you can make sure that they're available to the full board then. Thank you. Okay, item 5.5, first reading of the new board policy. Oh, I apologize.